All right, let's kick it. Happy Sober Day, friends, and welcome to the Sobriety Diaries. My name is Nate, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic. That may sound crazy, but I wouldn't be where I am and helping others without it. So for that, I am grateful. The Sobriety Diaries is a video podcast in which we talk to other recovering alcoholics and addicts. We hear their stories and hope to help others who may still be struggling. Check us out on Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod and at thesobrietydiaries.com for all things podcast related. Now, let's get down to the business at hand. Joining us today is my friend Sarah. Hey, Sarah, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy Saturday. How's your weekend going?
It's good. It's busy, but it's good.
Awesome. I guess we can say that we're living a good life and we're talking about recovery. What more could we ask for, right?
Exactly. Waking up hangover free and sober is such a blessing.
Amen. Well, I guess sort of a backstory of how we ended up here today. I was struck by your Instagram profile and sent you a DM, and you were very eager to sort of help the next struggling addict. And we kind of made this happen quickly. So I greatly appreciate that. And that's the only reason that I'm doing this. So I appreciate you being a part of it.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm very honored.
Thank you so much. What is something that you are grateful for today?
Something that I am grateful for today is my contentment in where I am in life right now. This sobriety journey has really given me a lot of weight that's been lifted off and replaced with content and peace and challenges. And I'm just super thankful for that and grateful for it. So I have never had it in the past recovery journeys before. So
it's amazing what we can handle, right? You know, for me in a sort of miserable state of active addiction, I didn't think I had time for anything, or that I was, skillful enough to do things like this, for instance. And then when you have a clear mind and you're able to like focus and commit to things, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Agreed. Definitely agree.
Well, let's open the diary on Sarah. Let's hear your story. Take it away.
Well, let's see. This is not my first rodeo, as I like to call it. I have actually been in and out of sobriety and recovery for over 10 years. I started when I was 21. Unfortunately, I got in trouble and got a DUI, which I'm actually really thankful for that I received that because it was my first step into AA, and it was the first time that I thought, do I have a problem with alcohol?
Same.
And the thing is, at that time, I was 21, I was bartending and cocktail serving. I was just thinking, I'm young. This is a phase. I'm just having fun. It's normal to go out and party all the time. And then also being in the service industry too, as well. I'm not sure if you have been in the service industry, but it revolves around drinking.
Sure does. It's a big part of my story as well.
Yeah, it's drinking after work, going to happy hour before work, sampling the new cocktail menu, or it's all drinking. That's pretty much
yep.
all
it's
it
true.
is.
It's really true.
Yeah, and so the lifestyle I was living was really a big part of that too. And then also looking back at it, being young and the normalization and the social acceptance of drinking. Whenever you watch TV shows, movies, all that stuff, you see all the college kids, they're partying, they're drinking, they're going to happy hours and all that stuff. So a lot of the time you're like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do,
right.
You know?
Right. Just fitting in here.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're taught that it's super normal to do that. And so living the lifestyle of the service industry and dealing with suppressed anxiety and depression, that also led to my drinking too as well. I was really reflecting on what caused me to drink. And my drinking started before the DUI. When I was 20, I was sexually assaulted by a coworker, and ended up going to the hospital for it. The doctor didn't believe me. It was a big mess, and I've never felt so low after something like that happening, that I fell into such a deep depression of it, because I just wanted it to go away. I just all this stuff. So that's when I started to isolate, drink in my room alone and all that stuff. And then escaping to work and then going out with friends afterwards. It was just a big spiral of hell, pardon my French, to say the least. And it just kept going and going and going. And because alcohol is such a good suppressant of emotions, I never had to I never dealt with the anxiety and depression that I have. And so the alcohol quieted it a lot. It was like, shh, like, just stay back there. Stay back here.
So perfectly put. That is so perfectly put. Yeah.
So that is kind of the beginning of that. But with that DUI, I kind of go to an outpatient treatment type of thing through the courts. And that was the first time I got the notion that I have a problem with alcohol. And like I said earlier, it was a phase, whatever, I'm 21. Yeah, right. With the stigma and everything with addiction, I don't look like an alcoholic. Right. I don't have the lifestyle of an alcoholic. And so I was giving myself all these excuses that I couldn't possibly have a problem with alcohol. And
I totally relate to that. And I think when we are that young, even if we have that sort of nagging suspicion in the back of our own minds, other people aren't yet bringing it up to you because we are young. For me, especially, I certainly had the nagging suspicion, but I was able to sort of stretch it out for a few more years before people started bringing it up to me. So
yeah, that was kind of the same way with me. I kept rolling with the punches, and then later in life, it was when people started to express their concern, and I just didn't want to deal with or admit to the fact that, yeah, Sarah, you got a drinking problem, hands down. My drinking continued from all my early and mid 20s. I ended up getting married at 27. My ex-husband and I, we met around booze. We met at the Brew Festival in Oregon, and we ended up getting married, and we just weren't the perfect match. We both were very unhappy in our marriage. And so with that unhappiness in the marriage, I kept drinking, and that ended up getting me into my first vacation to treatment, as I like to call it, which was a really great experience. But at that point in time, I was 29, and I had wanted to quit drinking, and I didn't know how. I knew I needed to. And so my ex-husband kind of was like, you have to go to treatment. And I'm really happy that I did, because I really wanted it, but there was something missing from going to treatment, like inside myself.
Yeah.
And treatment was really good. I met a lot of great people. I got a lot of tools. And when I got out, I stayed sober for a while. But I only changed the facade of my addiction, which means I just stopped drinking. I didn't do anything else. I didn't work on myself. I didn't go to therapy. I didn't do anything else in regards to that. I just did the notion of not drinking, which then caused me to relapse.
Yeah. Got to work on that cause, don't we?
Yeah, that cause. Apparently there's no magic wand or anything. So wish somebody told me that.
Yeah, right? Saved you another vacation.
Yes. And because there's no magic wand, it did earn me another vacation to treatment a year later, and went to a different treatment center. And it was a better experience than the first time around. And while I was in treatment, my ex-husband decided that it was time for us to go our separate ways. and that was right before I got out of treatment, and I had to move back in with my parents because I had nowhere to go. I was alone, and I felt like my life crumbled apart, and I felt like being in treatment, I should have had more strength to do it. And I was strong while I was in treatment, obviously, but it didn't take me that long after I felt like my whole life crumbled apart that I relapsed again right after treatment. And that was about 2.5 years ago. 2 years ago that happened. And then I was in and out. I'm a binge drinker. I don't know if you're a binge drinker or not. My life was drinking for a week straight and then stopping for a while, and then drink, stop. And it didn't become it was towards the end before I got into this journey. It got to the point where it was every day, but it wasn't drinking to get drunk. It was trying to get rid of the hangover and the hopelessness. But yeah, binge drinking was my big thing. So when I got out of treatment for the second time, moved with my parents, I'm like, I'm 30. I was 31. I was like, my life is falling apart. Like, I should have a fantastic career. I shouldn't be having these problems. And so it just put me more into a spiral of hopelessness and depression. And I felt like I had nobody, and I was completely miserable with my life. And so I just kept drinking. So that's what I knew how to do. That's what I knew how to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, which is funny because you want to drink to forget about your problems and you feel good. And then you wake up the next morning and you feel just like you just swallowed gasoline on all of your problems.
Right.
And
Terrible.
Then you light a match and do it again.
That's right. We have this my addiction, it starts with a obsession of the mind. So I obsess over the alcohol, and then of course it turns into that physical addiction.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely true for me as well.
Yeah. And with the mind too, I feel like in a way, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think maybe I speak for some other people. It's the romanticizing of being able to relax with that glass of wine, or being able to have fun at a party, or that you're an adult, you should be allowed to consume alcoholic beverages. And so it's this whole romanticized thing that ends up being a toxic marriage.
Exactly right. I have lost the privilege of consuming alcohol as an adult because I can't handle it. And to touch on something that you had just said, it's, there are alcoholics of all kinds. There are binge drinkers. There are those who drink 24/7. There are those who can kind of pick it up or leave it, but could still be considered an alcoholic because of why they drink and how they drink. So are we drinking to cover things up? Are we drinking because of a more, deep-seated internal issue? It's not the quantity or the, amount or the how often you drink. I think it's that reason and that sort of inner voice that classifies you and I, and probably some folks listening, as alcoholics and addicts.
Yeah. And it's also the reaction too that you have from it as well. If there is ever a point in your life where, towards the end, I was a blackout drinker, and it wouldn't even take me that much in the end to,
it's like all of a sudden it's oozing through our veins at one point. So then you have 2 drinks and you feel like you've had 20.
Yeah. Or like you're fine. You've had a couple drinks, and then you have that one drink, and all of a sudden you're like, the next morning you're like, where did that go? It just turned like that. And that's obviously a health thing for our mind and body, saying like, okay, our kidneys and liver is not processing this. You're killing yourself. Pretty much.
We all have the possibility of a relapse. What are you doing to safeguard this time that maybe you weren't before?
Yeah. So why this journey is so different than my past ones is that I have completely let my walls down. I let down my perfectionist attitude. I am 100% honest about everything. I just let everything out, which is one of the reasons that I started my Instagram profile.
Yeah.
Is I'm like, I need to be honest and open, because I was kept reverting back to old habits that I was doing of being a perfectionist, not talking about my problems, hiding everything, not just drinking, but just any problem that I had. I was really good at sweeping it under the rug. And if I don't see it or talk about it, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
It's like a 5-year-old sneaking past with their parents in the kitchen for a cookie. Like, if I don't
Right.
see them, they can't see me, and
but
you're
then
like,
it's like
no.
that cookie crumb is still on your cheek.
So I think the whole honest and transparent part of me is something that's definitely different. It's holding myself more accountable in that regards. And honestly, I know this is such a corny little phrase, but and a typical phrase for somebody in addiction, but I've said it in the past before, but this time I truly meant it. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I literally cannot handle it anymore. It was between a matter of life and death, pretty much. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that.
I had a moment of that same realization where it got to the point where I'm not sure why it happened on the day that it did or how, because I know that my own decision making wasn't responsible for it. If I in my intoxicated mind, if I were making decisions that day, I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you. But, I finally had that day where I just threw my hands up and was willing to surrender. And that's what it took. And thank goodness that it's been since that day. But yeah, I think you have to, not necessarily everyone has to make it to a bottom, I think. But those of us who do, because I certainly did as well. I think for me, I have to keep it like far enough away where I'm not like thinking about it too often, but like fresh enough that I can go back to that place and remember what it was like, so that if I start getting any crazy thoughts, I can remember what it felt like, so I don't go back there.
Yeah. And I think that is pretty important. And I know a lot of people in recovery talk about, don't look back, you're not going that way, or the past is in the past. And yes, I think that you definitely need to move on and not be so hard on yourself of the past choices that you made when you were in active addiction, because you're not that person anymore. But I feel like also at the same time, I know I do this, I will remember those moments and take them with a grain of salt, but also really remember them, because I don't want to go back to that. Like, exactly. I would rather have a day of irritable cravings or anything like that and just muddle through it than go back to, I'm just going to have a drink and then my week-long bender, and I've just completely traveled back in time.
Right, exactly. I want to ask you about another question about relapse, if I can. If we have any listeners who maybe are feeling squirrely, or in your words, kind of muddling through, what advice can you give, or what led to your relapse that we can look for and try to identify so it doesn't happen to others?
The common denominators with all of my relapses were I started to self-isolate. So that was like one of the biggest things. I didn't reach out to anybody. And when I mean reach out to anybody, it could be as simple as going to a 12-step meeting or anything like that, or just a good friend or something like that.
Sure.
But I definitely isolated, and I completely had a case of the screw it's. I was like, screw it. Like, I don't want to deal with it. And then I just literally turned off my brain to any emotions. So I isolated and I stopped feeling. And that is a huge thing that caused me to relapse. Because it just made me think that it wasn't worth it, and that I just couldn't handle it. And so in regards to saying that, to stop it in its tracks, it's okay to feel hopeless and sad and depressed and irritated and frustrated. It is so okay to have those feelings. And learning to navigate your feelings sober is such a difficult journey. It's not easy. it's like a kid learning how to ride a bike again, but as an adult.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so one thing that helps me, and it may not help others, but I know for me, is that I embrace those feelings for a short bit and reflect on why I'm feeling that way, and kind of tell myself, Sarah, you're irritated because somebody said something, or you can't have a drink, or something in life didn't go your way. Like, yeah, that sucks. It's frustrating, but this is only going to last temporarily.
Yes.
And then another big thing that I do is I jump on the Instagram sober community, and the community online has changed. I feel support for everyone in recovery so much.
You're going to make me emotional about it.
Yeah.
It's so true, Sarah.
It is. I mean, for someone like you, like doing podcasts, there's so much sober support out there. And I really wish it was more like this 2 years ago than it is now, but I'm so happy for the IG community. I have a lot of people who reach out to me saying that they feel alone and all that stuff, and those types of feelings. And I know how that feels, even though you're around a bunch of people or you're with your family, significant other, you do feel alone, but you can reach out to your sober community because they do know how you feel. Like, because I can relate to mostly everybody who speaks to me when it comes to that feeling. So
definitely. Yeah. I think it's important to, in regards to recovery, if you need that support or you need that chat, to reach out to someone who has the same lived experience of sort of the guidance that you're looking for. It might not be your mom in a particular situation, or, your sister, someone that can relate and truly understand what you're saying.
I completely agree with that. I think that's very important. I don't talk to, my close girlfriends, they don't have a problem with alcohol. So I don't really speak to them about what I'm going through or the emotions I have, because they can have empathy for me, but they can't relate to it. The type of emotions that somebody with addiction goes through truly is unique, and the only person they can relate to is another fellow person who's gone through what they've gone through.
So true. This is so funny. You know how things kind of just happen. I mean, happen for a reason is pretty cliche, but this has come up now 3 times today, once in the live stream and another recording that I did, but that we as addicts and alcoholics, more so than any other community, are willing to share like our deepest, darkest secrets in our most vulnerable times in our lives with, strangers, for lack of a better word, to be able to relate and have that shared experience to help each other. And I think you said it perfectly. Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, most of us have such suppressed and dark feelings that we think that we're alone, or we're the only ones with a drinking problem. We're the only ones who drink this way. We're the only ones who do things when we're drunk this way. We think that we're so flawed and weak and helpless, and we're like, oh my gosh, this isn't normal. I must be absolutely insane.
Bonkers. When
in reality, like, it's absolutely not. You're not alone. You have so many other people out there who can relate to the way that I drank and this crap that I did. I was like, I must be the craziest person in the world. I'm the only person who does this. This is nuts.
I will never tell anyone about this. I must be crazy. And then you talk to an alcoholic, or you go to a meeting and they've seen it all. And you're like, okay, these are my people.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So
I usually like to touch on the hereditary side of addiction versus perhaps a trauma that has occurred. Do you feel as though maybe you were headed on a path of addiction prior to your trauma, or do you have a family history of addiction? Yeah,
so I didn't grow up around alcoholics. My mom and dad weren't. My siblings didn't have a problem. I was the only one out of my immediate family that had one. And my mom and dad did a really great job at not having alcohol around when we were young and everything, because they didn't have a drinking problem. They don't really drink at all. But looking at my family history and having people in addiction in my family, it must have just weaseled around and decided this is the one.
Could have maybe skipped a generation, or maybe in the lifeline somewhere, you think?
Yeah, something. Yeah. And I do believe it is, there is the hereditary factor. There is also the environment of growing up. So people who, and this is from research that I've done, I'm not or anything, but I know that people who grow up to be in addiction have had in some way grown up around it. And so it's just, I don't know, it's just such a tricky thing. And then
it really is. I think it's probably just the perfect or worst storm of your environment and nature and nurture and maybe a little bit of genetics, and it's probably a good or gross mix of all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk some fun things. Your Instagram is amazing. You've got a pretty, I mean, I'm looking through your website now, and it looks like you work really hard on it, and sort of starting in this genre and launching this podcast. I know how much hard work that is. What inspired you to kind of focus on, an online presence and in the recovery side of things? And let's talk about that journey.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons I started my I started my Instagram before I started my blog. And the main thing about my Instagram is that I didn't know, I knew some people in recovery, but I didn't have a lot of people I could relate to. And also one of the reasons why I didn't admit that I had a problem with alcohol is because of the stigma around it.
Right.
So that's a really scary thing to admit that, especially with the stereotype and the stigmatism with addiction.
Yeah.
And I just got so sick of being a facade of a person and a perfectionist that I was like, do you know what? It's time to find my fellow people.
Put it out there. Yeah.
My community. It is time for me I need inspiration from others, but hopefully my story can inspire somebody else who went through the same thing I did, had the same feelings and scaredness of starting this journey. So that was a big thing that one of the reasons I started my Instagram page.
Plug your IG for us. Where can they find you on Instagram?
At savvy_sobriety32. That is me.
That's Sarah. I'll link it in she's quite sassy, but I'll link your things in the show notes as well.
Oh, awesome. How I started my blog. It's funny. I never was a big writer growing up or anything, or I can't remember how well I did on like papers in high school or anything, but with I'm a very informational person. I like to read a lot. I know a bunch of random useless facts about stuff. I do a lot of research and everything. So I always have a lot to say. And I realized I wanted to get this information out there with the struggles that you don't hear about, in the way that recovery journeys aren't all one size fits all. And there's so many different things that you can do, and just having the knowledge of said certain things. And I realized that Instagram, you can't write super long captions.
Yeah. Right.
So I was like, I have so much more to say. And then I was like, I should start a blog. I don't know who will read it, but
yeah, it's funny how we're pulled in a direction, or we're drawn to things. If you think that you can help someone, and if you have, a passion in the voice to deliver it, do it. If 2 people see it, if 3 people listen to this podcast, that's enough for me. I'm doing it because I want to help people, and that I have a passion to deliver a message. So that's why I'm doing it, not for the likes and whatnot. So I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, I definitely, because I wish that the stories that I know now from everybody in the community, I wish I knew back then, but I know a lot of people were scared to talk about it back then. So I think it's a great way to share that you're not alone. And then also one thing for me too, is that as obviously the years go on, recovery changes a little bit on how we get here. And a lot of people think recovery is just a one-way street. Like you can only do it this exact way, and that's the only way you can get sober. And that's not true. There's so many different ways that you can do about it, and it's not a one size fits all. You can tailor it to yourself. And so that was one thing. I think I was having a problem with that in the past, was if I didn't do it this direct way, I would never succeed. And so
how horrible if we all had to follow the same path, right?
I know, right? Yeah. And the thing is, we're all humans, we're all unique,
right?
We all like different things.
We all learn differently, we all express emotion differently.
I was tripping over my words. And so this is like, one way is not going to be the one, and it's not universal, pretty much.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What do you hope that listeners walk away with from hearing you today?
I hope that they know that it takes a lot of strength and grit to start a journey like this. And one big thing is that you are not alone. You really do have a whole sober community behind your back, and that you have a lot of resources at your fingertips and so much support. Anybody at any time can reach out to me via Instagram, and I will be there unless I'm sleeping.
He replies to DMs, trust me.
Yes, I know. DMs, yes. I will respond back always unless I am asleep.
She will.
But truly, it's one big thing is that it's a scary journey. It's not easy. There's no magic pill. There's no magic wand. There's no fairy godmother, but you are stronger than you think, that you give yourself credit for. So I want people to know that, to give themselves grace and know that they have this true strength to go into recovery and sobriety, and you truly can change your life doing this as well.
That's beautiful. Well said. Thank you, Sarah. That brings us to the end of today's episode of the Sobriety Diaries. Thanks so much for listening today, friends. Huge thank you to Sarah. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for your time today. Let's keep in touch, okay?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on, Nate.
We'll talk soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, Sarah.
Sounds great.
Hopefully you heard something that resonates with you, and if we help just one person, our job is done. You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and head on over to the sobrietydiaries.com for all things podcast related. Check back soon for new episodes with new stories to tell. But until then, try your best not to drink and be good to yourselves. Bye, friends.